committee meeting. Just want to briefly address with the group, obviously, kind of the role and the task for us here as a lacrosse committee, which is obviously to put together a sport report for the Legislative Council to review and vote on in May to approve any changes for the 21-22 school year. Obviously, there's been a push from some in the community to make changes on current season dates and variances. And obviously, as I said, this committee doesn't have the authority to change anything or any approvals from CDPHE. And so we have our agenda. We'll go over that agenda at length today and bring up any discussion points. But obviously, we just want to make sure that we understand our role as a committee is to make that report for the Legislative Council and to better the sport and put it into place moving forward, that we can once all this stuff with COVID is over with, we're in a spot in 21-22 where we're moving forward and we're ready to go when everything's said and done. So Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you, our boys lacrosse committee chair, with 1.0, and we'll get the meeting going. So thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Justin. Really appreciate it. And it's great to see a lot of you again. I know we haven't met, since January or so, but it's just great to see everybody without masks on and moving forward. So I hope season A and season B have gone well so far for your schools, and we're excited about season C and season D moving forward. So it's really important, like Justin said, just want to echo, some of his sentiments that, we focus on the agenda, the tasks that we have here at hand. We can bring a report to the Legislative Council here in a few months. So let's go over the roll call. Obviously, I'm here. We'll start with Tom from Rock Canyon. Are you here?
Here.
Okay. Jason from Thomas Jefferson.
Here.
Chris from Telluride.
Here.
Bobby from Vail Mountain.
Here.
Carl from Overland.
Here.
Joe from the Vanguard.
Here.
Nate from Inglewood.
Here.
Coach Matt from Cherry Creek.
Here.
And then we have Mark representing the officials. From sunny Florida. Mark, you there?
I see Mark, he's there. I think he's on mute.
Okay. And then Rod finally representing the coaches.
Yeah, here. I'm getting some background noise from, I'm not sure where, but I'm having a tough time hearing people at times.
Okay.
Just as a heads up.
I'm present, sir. Didn't know I was on mute.
No, that's okay. That's great, Mark.
No, that's great. Really appreciate it. And I'm glad Mark's down in sunny Florida to share that with us.
I'll be back in a couple. Don't worry.
Yeah. Moving forward, all of you have received the 2020 Boys Lacrosse Committee minutes. So if you could take a few seconds to review those. They were sent to you on email by Justin. And then once you review them, let's go ahead and call for an approval of the minutes. So a lot of things have changed. We met in January 2020 before COVID hit. So just want to review those and get an approval.
Now, whenever you guys get a chance, just a committee member can make a motion, and then we just need a second.
I would make a motion to approve them whenever anyone's had time to read through them.
Thanks, Nate. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Joe Cimboli.
Thanks, Joe. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say aye. Okay, the minutes are approved from 2020. Now we want to quickly move to the officials report. I know Mark was sharing some things with us. So Mark, you have the floor. We'd love to hear from the official side of things.
Okay, well, I started the season down here in Florida, and they've gone pretty well. Only 5 schools didn't decide to field a team, but everything is going well here, and it's pretty much the same protocols that Colorado has put in. What we've done is put out a questionnaire to the Colorado guys in every area to kind of gauge the interest of whether they're going to officiate or not. And the problem is most of the guys are in my age group, which is it's affecting our age group. And that's a large amount of guys that we have in the system. So we've gotten probably about 50 responses, and about 8 or 9 of the guys have said no, that they don't want to officiate. So I really won't know the numbers that we'll have for you guys until, I don't know, probably the end of this month, maybe the beginning of March. But I can't blame them for not doing games if they don't want to. And we can't hold it against them. We've reduced the membership fees to $37.50 because we didn't have a season last year. And we felt that was the right thing to do. And even still, guys are not responding as quickly as we'd like to. So I'm going to send out another reminder, and I can get back to you on that, Justin, and let you know the numbers that we're going to have.
Perfect.
There are no rule changes for us, which makes it easier. We're going to start our classes very shortly. I put in a recruitment incentive to grab some more officials in the area. I want to try to travel out to the mountains this year. I don't know. Some of the coaches have asked me to come out there to do some training and stuff like that with the guys. And so I got to work that out with some of the coaches out there, if they're willing to work with me on that, as far as like games and stuff like that. Other than that, I mean, we're looking forward to getting this thing going, and the guys are itching. It's going to be a short season. That's another factor. I heard 10 games. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So a lot of guys are like, well, why am I going to sign up for if I'm only going to get, maybe 15 games throughout the year? Again, I can't predict what these guys are going to do. I have no issues with it. I don't. And I've been all over the country. I've done this everywhere, all over the countries lately. And I haven't had a problem yet or seen a problem yet. So other than that, if you guys have some questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Really appreciate what the officials do, because without officials, we can't have games, obviously. So I assume most of them would want to do 2 games in a row, a JV
Yeah,
and a varsity.
I think we'll see a lot of double headers for sure, Mark.
Yeah.
And that'd be great. I mean, that helps out the guys from, it just makes it more efficient for you guys, but also monetary wise for us,
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions for Mark?
I mean, not that there was any, and I understand, I'm not used to the way it's done in Colorado. When I'm in Massachusetts, it's an assigner. Here it's an assigner, et cetera, et cetera. But we are going to have an assigning committee to review the assignments to make sure that the right guys are on those games. If they're depending on the caliber of the game, what's going on, we want the experienced officials on those games. And like I said, we have a incentive program going, and also we're going to have a mentor program going there to just get these guys up to speed and recruit more officials.
Mark, one thing I got a question for you is just, can maybe, as you find out some of those big club tournament dates, could you kind of let us know, just because I know sometimes that at least down our end of the area, when there's a tournament in Vail, all of a sudden we lose a lot of officials just because they're going to pick up a bunch of games in a weekend.
Right. And I have heard that through some of the kids is they're not even going to play high school sports, the high school season, because the club sports start right away. So that could be an issue too. And that's a great point. So I will try to find out some of the local tournaments and the travel tournaments that these kids go to, and see how they may conflict with what we got going on.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, the Denver Shootout is the weekend of the state semifinals, and the state championship game is being played during the Vail Lacrosse tournament. So probably some conflicts there with that, with the Denver Shootout being the same weekend as the semis.
Not only with players, but also officials.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks, Mark. Moving
Bet.
on to 5.0, Rod Allison, Coaches Association report.
Yeah, Mike, thanks. And Mike, thanks for including the Coaches Association. And I guess I should say that to Justin and Whitney. Appreciate you guys including us in the meeting, and we always appreciate it. And I guess just briefly, as a historical note, and this is prior to my time, but as I understand it, the boys lacrosse and girls lacrosse really weren't sanctioned until about the year 2000. Time flies, and that's almost 20 years ago. But prior to that time, each coaches association would run their particular sports. So that was kind of the background and conception of how the coaches association materialized. And it's continued throughout the years, working and doing many things as a coaches association that simply weren't happening at a statewide level through CHSAA as initially when the lacrosse was a new sport. Now, everybody over the years has gotten much more familiar with lacrosse. More ADs are familiar with lacrosse. Ryan now works at CHSAA and has done a great job across all sports, lacrosse and otherwise, helping coordinate coaches and do all state and all county teams and things of that nature. So right now, I'll divide my relatively brief comments maybe into two things. First, our current function of what we do is the lacrosse coaches like to get together, and we always do so in person in non-COVID years. And we'd always meet in Denver, essentially preseason and postseason. And the preseason meeting, and I'll take this up with Mark at some point. Mark and I don't know each other, but one of the things we do at the preseason meeting typically is get a rules update done for all the coaches. And for the last decade, and that's been my time period involved, that's essentially been primarily, we've worked with Jason Neely. And he's come in and done a rules update. Sometimes they're very brief, sometimes they're longer, but we accomplish that and get all the coaches the official rules update for the year. We plan to do that this year, and our preseason meeting hasn't been scheduled yet because the season's delayed because of COVID. But it'll be in March, and possible dates are the 13th, 21st, or the 28th, that it'll probably take place by a Zoom meeting. And Mark, I'll coordinate with you sometime soon if you or another official might do a rules update for us, and just, we usually play the video that US Lacrosse publishes, and then if anybody has questions, we do a little quick Q&A. So that takes place at our preseason meeting. And then we also lay out for the coaches the process that one of the functions we also do is we do all conference teams in kind of an award process, all conference teams, all state teams, and then we have a All-American process that goes through US Lacrosse. And so that gets rather intricate and involved and rather time consuming. And then the last, maybe 3 years, 2 or 3 years at a minimum, I've coordinated with Ryan. And we will send over our results of our all-state teams and other award winners, Coach of the Year and things of that sort. And so we coordinate with CHSAA on that, so we don't have like two separate polls going that are different. That always raised a number of issues with different coaches or families or kids and things of that sort. So that's one of our functions and a main function that we still do that's important. And we have a whole set of awards that are just particular to lacrosse that reflect some of the past and the culture and the history of the game, both locally and nationally. And just, ranging from good sportsmanship to student leadership and academic excellence and things of that sort. So it's been very positive, and that's what we do, and that's what we coordinate every year. We also then do a year-end all-state game. We don't know what that's going to look like this year. And that is primarily attended by anywhere from 300 to 500 people. It's where I first met really Justin, and worked with him in getting venues. We've utilized all city stadium, South High School, for a number of years. And prior to Justin being at CHSAA, I was with DPS, and he'd help us coordinate that. And that's always a great night. And then we honor all the kids, and we get all the all-state players out there, the first and second team, and they play a game, a 4A game, a 5A game. And then in between games, we bring out all the award winners and have a nice presentation, and all the families are there. It's usually, it's worked out to be a pretty good night. But again, we don't know what that looks like this year, so we're really fluid on that. And we've talked about, one, do we have it? Two, if we do we figure out how to stream it? Or do we get our awards done, but we just won't have an all-state game this year? We're not sure, but we'll figure that out as we go. So that's really will take us through the year, and we usually are in full speed right here. In February, we've already had our preseason meeting typically, but because of the delay, because of COVID, a lot of stuff is still somewhat up in the air. So I don't have everything hammered down on that right now. The second piece that I'll mention is that coaches are pretty good at getting together, providing input. We've got an executive committee. And I know, and I've talked with Justin about this a couple times, and I know that this meeting is forward looking to the next cycle, and a quick report as we come into this season. Some of the activity that the coaches committee has taken place up to this date, though, is just the calendar for season D, not just lacrosse, but across the board, as the emails that Justin referred to earlier. I haven't been a recipient of those, but I'm assuming that they have a lot to do with the calendar. We did get all the coaches together through a poll, and I simply need to report that it was overwhelmingly 90% plus was trying to figure out how we could end the season a bit earlier. And the coaches also were trying to figure out how to do that without changing the start date, so there wouldn't really be a conflict with season C as well. So that's been a concern, been a lot of our time spent up to this, whether realistic or not, has been trying to figure out a way to make that happen for a variety of reasons. So understanding that this committee, that's not their function. I've also spoke with Justin about just the communication piece, as coaches are always interested and make themselves available either through myself, or we've got two great members on this particular committee with Jason at 4A level and Matt at 5A level. Both of them know the sport, know their fellow coaches, know the teams, and the concerns, to just try to figure out. It's a tough thing to do, to get input ahead of time where, we're always operating. CHSAA needs to operate on in the future on 2 and 3 year advance cycles. And so we always seem sometimes a step behind. And so the more we can be, try to stay up to speed for whatever we need to do from our end, or vice versa, we're always happy to try to coordinate and do. So that's my report. And anybody has any questions for me, happy to answer. And, I know just about everybody, or have seen most people on this call. That's not always the case in past years. And so that's a positive, at least from my end, that, lacrosse is becoming more familiar to schools, and it's a growing sport. It's an expanding sport, and we look forward to, it continuing just being a great activity for student athletes.
Thanks, Rod. Really appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions for Rod or the Coaches Association?
And I'd just ask this to Mark too. Mark, are we going to be able to maybe coordinate on a rules update? Or I take it, are you working just with CHSAA, or are you president of the Officials Association now, or what should I know?
Well, I'm the president of the association, but just so you know, I'm a certified trainer, observer, and a rules interpreter as well. So I'd be more than happy to work with you and the coaches and any updates or whatever, or any questions that they ever have, even during the season or off season. It's
perfect. So I'll coordinate something with you, maybe on a Zoom call if it fits your calendar, and we can just have you jump on for that call for 15 minutes or something.
Yeah, these Zoom calls are great because I'm on the road all the time, year round.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Yep, it's perfect.
All right. Thanks, guys. Moving on to 6.0, the CHSAA update. I want to turn it over to Justin.
All right, thanks, Mike. So I just want to remind everyone, obviously COVID's a weird year. And so we did do a lot of work last year with the committee, and we do have some new members. So this is really just kind of an update on all the work that the committee did last year, to remind everyone that, yeah, while obviously the modifications that we've made and that CDPHE has approved for us this season will not continue forever. The committee did do a lot of great work out into the future to make sure the lacrosse does continue to grow. And I think the biggest thing that we did in this committee meeting last year was expanding the 4A, 5A bracket. So both 4A and 5A lacrosse, boys lacrosse, moving forward, starting, I guess I should knock on wood, but when we get back to normal in 2022, we'll have a 24 team bracket. And so, I think the expansion of the playoff bracket is going to include, more teams than it ever has before. Hopefully keep more teams engaged throughout the season. And ultimately the goal, as it is with every sport, is to try to grow, new programs and more programs. So we hope that expansion of that bracket will do so. That'll take place as soon as COVID is no longer a part of our lives, and we can get back to some normalcy. So we're hoping 2022, we'll start with that 24 team bracket that we approved at this committee meeting last year. And then the new seeding formula. That's just a reminder to everybody that the new seeding formula takes effect this year. It'll aid in seeding the bracket for and selecting the at-large qualifiers this year and moving forward. And the biggest piece that I think we're most happy about there is taking all the data points that we have available to us, not just one, which is RPI, but now max preps, and then to bring that human element back into the room. Rod, as you spoke from the Coaches Association, but to have coaches now a part of the seeding process, 1/3 of the seeding process. The only human element a part of the seeding process is the coaches. To bring them back into the room, their poll will now seed the tournament, be a part in seeding the tournament is an important thing for us. So I just wanted to kind of update everybody on those changes, and then just open that up for any committee discussion before we move on to 7.2, which is some new additions that we'll have going into next cycle.
Hey, one question that comes up, and I don't know if it's completely relevant to what you said, but kind of the venues this year, I know have been just a scramble and fluid for all your sports at
We're
CHSAA.
still working. We're still final. I'm literally on a call right after this to try to finalize season B, which is what we're currently in.
Yeah, yeah.
For a few
So I
weeks.
know you've got all that kind of stuff going on, but as relates back to what I was talking about with just knowledge, what communication, CHSAA has certain things they just need to get done. Whatever input would be appreciated. That
100%.
relates. I know you've got financial budget
Yep.
stuff.
Yep. And Raj, when we'd hoped to go last year to DU, and you, myself, Jim Soren, I mean, we all sat down in the meeting,
Yeah.
and I openly discussed options for venues. We had that conversation. Now, obviously, Jim's no longer on the committee, so I look forward, to Coach Bachlet and also to Coach Klimzak to being a part of those conversations as well with you and the coaches committee. But I always go and want your opinion. We speak multiple times every month or every couple of months, and obviously bring those coaches on the committee in there as well. You guys will always have a voice with me, and I always go to you to make sure that what we're doing is in alignment with kind of what the coaches want as well.
Yeah, that's all good. So the only thing I'd say is I know if you in past, sometimes we'd see pre you that a contract get laid in place and it'd be for a 2, 3, 4 year period. And so it might be a good place to be year one, but then everybody wasn't thrilled about it in year 2, 3, or 4.
Right.
And it'd be locked in by contract. And so I don't know if that's happening. That would just be a concern.
Sure. Yeah. Again, we'll obviously with Mike, the chair, and you, the coaches, we'll discuss. But to talk about venues right now with COVID, it's so, universities aren't letting us on the campus.
Right.
It's just so hard to predict. So I couldn't give an answer one way or the other, any kind of a plan. But with the contract we had with DU, there was no long-term contract. That was just a year-to-year. So that was before signed and done before COVID. So I anticipate something similar moving.
All City's a nice central spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yep. But no, for sure, we'll be in touch when we start talking venues with the committee chair, and obviously, I always like coach input and stuff too. So.
Hey, Justin, with that, with the coaches poll for the seating, what percentage was it that we figured out for that the coaches needed to participate in for the coaches poll to be counted towards postseason?
Yeah, we got Ryan's on the meeting too. He could chime in. I can't remember the exact number, but I'm pretty sure, Ryan, it was if they missed two weeks, then they would not be able to vote in the final poll, which is ultimately the one that will count towards the seating.
That sounds correct. And I think we'll just have to go back and find those notes, but
it's in the meeting minutes. Yeah, those
okay,
you guys.
yeah, we'll
if
go
you
back
guys
and find
check
it,
those meeting minutes that we approved, if you guys look at those, there it should be in
I'm
there.
looking at the minutes now, and it's 75%.
75%. Okay.
Okay.
That was last year pre-COVID. So it's important for them to vote as much.
Yes. And Ryan has been great about sending an email update to people to say, hey, you miss one more, it's not going to count. And we've also, as we talked about at this meeting, Mike, we've also been emailing coaches that said, hey, listen, we have a couple questions on your voting. Can you explain it? And just to say, hey, you got a team that's 0-7 and you put them number 1 in the state. Can you explain that? So anyone that has a concern about the validity of those polls, trust me, we're looking at them and we're going to coaches and we're making them explain their decisions.
Right, and overwhelmingly they're doing a good job.
Oh, absolutely.
I think, Justin, we've had one coach we've had to send
exactly
that email
right.
to in hockey.
Yes,
so,
we're talking less than 1%.
But that is good for people to know. We are looking at every single ballot every single week. So they're being audited.
Yep.
Any other questions regarding the seating? Because that's the new formula is taking place this spring.
Right. So I just want to kind of bring up before we get into the calendar review, I just want to talk to you guys because obviously, like I said, this is, I think, our third meeting now without having played a game of lacrosse. So not a lot to discuss this year, but I want people to start looking forward to next year in this committee meeting as we start discussing the new cycle. And so I want to just put on everyone's radar some of the new programs that are coming on board for the 22-24 cycle, and then some of the classification changes that'll be taking place that the committee's going to have to keep in mind as we start looking at league placement and things like that that we came up with last year. So we've got a couple of new schools that are planning on coming on board in 2022-2024, and those schools are STEM Highlands Ranch, which will be coming on as a 4A program. Resurrection Christian, which will be coming on as a 4A program. Crested Butte has traditionally had a junior varsity program. Their plan for 22-24 is to now come on with a varsity program. So we'll be adding Crested Butte to the varsity slate, 22-24. Arvada West will be coming on with a 5A program next cycle. Wheat Ridge will be coming back to varsity lacrosse, and they will be coming in at the 4A classification. And then John F. Kennedy has expressed an interest. They've also had a program like Wheat Ridge in the past. Their plan is to start boys lacrosse again in 22-24. So we've got 6 programs that'll be coming on brand new. And again, that's what we're trying to do with this sport. I think lacrosse is probably one of our fastest growing sports. It's becoming more and more popular in the state of Colorado. Our hope with everything that we do in this committee is to continue that growth. And you've seen it right off the bat here with six new schools coming on board in 22-24. So very, very excited about that. We've got a couple of schools that will be moving classifications pending, obviously, an approval of the clock report at the Legislative Council. But we've got some classification movement in 22-24. I want to make you guys aware of that. Dakota Ridge, previously a 5A school, will now be a 4A school in 22-24. Mullen, previously a 5A program, will be a 4A program in 22-24. Grand Junction, previously a 5A program, will be a 4A program in 22-24. And Fruita Monument, previously a 5A program, will be a 4A program in 22-24. Denver South will be a 4A program this cycle, and then will be a 5A program in 22-24. So we've got Dakota Ridge, Mullen, Fruita, and Grand Junction that will be 4A programs, and Denver South that will be a 5A program in the 22-24 cycle. Anybody have any questions on any of that?
Hey, Justin, I have a question?
Absolutely.
It's not really a question, it's just more of a comment. As we started talking about schedules for next year and then the following cycle, most of us ADs already had schedules for the fall and even winter sports pre-COVID.
Yep.
So for the second year of the cycle, we're just going back to those schedules.
That's the plan. Yeah.
But for lacrosse, a lot of us probably didn't have our schedule solidified yet once we shut down. So it's just a reminder that there's a lot of people that probably are going to be scrambling to try and find 5 additional games for next year only. And then we'll have a new schedule for the following cycle.
Yep. And there's that's a great, Tom, that's a great, I'm glad you brought that up. Great point. And ADs need to be aware of that. We saw that in some other sports, soccer, where some of the schedules were maybe half done or not really done at all. So just keeping in mind that spring 2022 will be essentially the second year of a very, very unique cycle where you'll be getting more games, obviously, and the schedule will look a lot different. So we'll be going back to more of a normal schedule that you guys have. So just be aware, start to keep in mind and maybe start putting together some of those 2022 schedules so you can get ahead of the game. And the plan would just be to open that back up to ADs and have as normal of a schedule as you guys have always been used to. And trust me, believe me, me more than anybody else is looking forward to that. I promise you.
And then these new programs, they're going to be put into leagues.
Yeah, and we'll work. Yeah, we'll work as a committee. We'll be tasked with looking at that next year.
Okay. Any other questions for Justin related to those new schools? I mean, it's fantastic to have more programs in the state.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're really looking forward to it. And just want to
Hey,
commend the committee.
I always get confused on the cycle 22 to 24. What spring seasons are we talking about? Just so
23, 20, spring 23, 24.
Got it.
Yes. Fall of 22 to
Yeah.
spring of 24.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yep.
Okay. Moving on to 7.0, anything else, Justin, with the calendar review? I mean,
Nope.
this is for
Oh,
next.
yeah. So I think this should be some discussion for the committee here. Again, we've got the additional round, Mike, as you know,
Right.
we went to
The
24 teams. That'll start next year. So I put together a draft, kind of mirrors, because the round numbers are similar to girls soccer. It mirrors that, but obviously this will be some discussion and some approval from this committee around those dates. Obviously, the start date, and the finish date are already predetermined, but the end dates and the playoff dates, I'd like really to get the eyes of this committee on. Let me just give you some background, if I can, on kind of what was decided, and then we can have the discussion. So the season for the spring sports will end on, I believe it's Saturday, May 7th. May 7th, I think it's a Saturday. We'll put the seating committee will come together and we'll put out the brackets on May 8th. And then what I figured was best, Mike, is May 10th is, I believe, and Whitney, if I'm wrong on my dates, yell out to me. I think May 10th is a Tuesday. So I figured 5A should go first, just because I anticipate looking at all the new, all these Western Slope programs and a lot of the travel that 4A has to incur, that they would be able to get an extra day of travel. And then their next round would be on a Saturday, which was a big thing that I've heard from the Western Slope superintendents, is that, hey, when we're making these longer trips, we'd like them to be on a Saturday. And so you'll see the first round, I believe we have Tuesday and then Friday. For the second round for 5A, 4A, we've got a Wednesday, Saturday plan for them, again, to give them an extra day on the front end when the brackets are released to plan their travel, and then a Saturday date. And then we would go into the quarterfinals, higher seeds still hosting those quarterfinal rounds. Semifinal, you'll see, will be a 4A, 5A. We'll do those at one location, and then the championship at one location as well. And those locations obviously still to be announced. I'm still trying to finalize a location for 3 weeks from now, so let alone 14 months.
Yeah. I just pulled up the 2022 calendar, and that's correct. So 5A would be a Tuesday, May 10th, 4A a Wednesday. I assume, with officials wise, that should help as well. If we've increased both the brackets to 24.
Yes, trying to keep them on separate dates was another,
Yeah.
big thing to try to make sure that we had enough officials on each.
That should help. And I agree with the travel with 4A, with Western Slope and the new programs now. I guess my question would be that quarterfinal game, do we want to have them on the same evening? And then just give them those teams that win just another day before they
Sure,
head
it certainly can, if that's what the committee would prefer. I think we could do it on either 17th or the 18th. I don't know. I guess, Mark, that would make for 8 locations, and on that one weekday, I don't know if that's an issue. But if the committee feels like those quarterfinals on all in one day is better for potential additional rest, you guys tell me.
Does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
I think it would give 4A schools one less planning day. If we went on the 17th, Mike, to say, okay, they're going to play on a Saturday, we'll just give them, and that might not be an issue, I don't know, but it would be one less day for them to plan a potential another Western Slope trip, because there will be a lot of Western Slope and Colorado, Springs representation in the 4A class.
Probably more travel for those 4A teams too, generally.
Yeah, 5A is now pretty much exclusively on the I-25 corridor.
what is considered the western slope? I'm sorry.
Steamboat, Crested Butte,
Got it.
Fruta, Grand Junction. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Justin, are we going to make those play on dates or play by dates? I just always think that's important to put in there.
Great, no, great point. I would say because of, again, with officials, I think they need to be play on dates so that we don't get a situation, usually like in field hockey, you'll see some play by, and then all of a sudden you'll see a large amount of people wanting to play on the Saturday instead of the Friday. And now all of a sudden we've got no officials to cover. Although, so my opinion, it would be play on, just to alleviate the issues that could come up with too many games on one days with officials.
Also help probably schedule some graduations too.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I think what you put together, Justin, I think it's probably the way to go.
Yeah, it's got nice separation. It's gonna look very similar to soccer. So, people will say, hey, the off days are very similar. Allows the 4A, to plan the travel, get a little extra time at the front end on their any schedule. They get the extra Saturday, whereas 5A will play on a Friday. So we're just trying to reduce school time missed and all that good stuff.
And
as
I
well.
think, any more graduations seem like they're all through.
Right.
It's really hard to avoid some people's graduations.
Right.
I think from a coach's standpoint, what's important is completing the state championship before Memorial Day weekend, which
we will.
Does. Yeah. I think just for years moving forward, because I remember last year, I think the state championship was planned for like the Tuesday after Memorial Day.
Correct. That's like the one, and that's like once every 7 years, Coach. Where it just happens where, every other year it'll always be done before Memorial Day. It's just one time every 7 years when that Monday comes up a little bit earlier, when the last day of the month is a Sunday or whatever. So that's a very rare thing. Won't happen again for quite some time.
Well, and I think, just the championship game on Tuesday, the 24th, it's 4 teams, it's 2 4A and 2 5A.
Yep.
It's not a lot of teams, but it's nice to be done before Memorial Day.
Yes.
And then same with the 21st, there'll probably be some graduations that weekend. Well, there's not as many schools participating.
Correct. And it's like there's going to be graduations sprinkled throughout at that point, so it's kind of tough to try to plan around those.
Yeah. So, all right, well, good. Anybody else have any other questions regarding the calendar?
So we would need we just need a motion to approve these dates, and we'll put them in for next year.
Okay, so let's ask for a motion to approve the 2022 calendar as written on your screen there.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Tom makes the motion. Is there a second?
Yep.
Who said that? Matt. Okay,
Yep.
Coach Bachlet. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say aye as well. Okay, it carries. Okay. All right, are there any other items you want to discuss before we adjourn?
Quick question. With this upcoming season, with like the majority of the season being during the summertime, are teams going to be allowed to practice on Sundays during the season once the school year's done?
We'll get that information out, Coach. We'll have that. We'll definitely have that for you.
Okay. And then my last thing, just for the coach's perspective, Jason and I, like when we find out different items, that you're looking for our input, like Jason put together a great poll when we were talking about this upcoming spring. And I think Rod even mentioned it, that the coaches association maybe kind of feels like we're a step behind in the process. So if you have like the things where you really want our input for the future, like for next year, if there's things that, that they're going to be decided upon, it would help us a lot if we knew now and we could try to get ahead of it and maybe give you our input before final decisions are made. I think that's just kind of why we received, and I got all those emails from all those parents. I think that's why coaches get upset and parents potentially get upset. We just feel like we are a step behind in the process, and we'd love to just get in front of it for future reference. So if there are items for next year, whatever it may be, where, we can start talking to coaches, since we have so much time before our season starts this year, ideally we'll get like the general feel from the majority like we did with the calendar. The problem was we got that input after the calendar already came out. So if there's
Sure. Right. Well, the calendar for this year, there wasn't a lot of, coach, there wasn't much. COVID changed a lot.
Yeah.
Compatibility this year. So I just want to say that. And I can tell you, when I sat down with Jim and with Rod, basically every concern they had, you'll see was addressed, and it will take place in 22-24. So we'll absolutely make sure that you guys will keep you in the loop as always, and we'll get your input, and we'll be addressed at these meetings, and like we did last year, with as far as some of the schools in the classification placements of them, the coaches' input on the poll, the bracket, we got those addressed, and those will all take place 22-24.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Matt. Really appreciate it. Anything else before we move to adjourn?
No, I'll just say, Justin, I appreciate this past year here where you kind of reached out to some of the leagues and set up some meetings to have some important discussions. I know it helped out Mountain West League and us get organized with some things. So I appreciate you taking the extra effort and doing that.
Absolutely. Appreciate all the work that you guys are doing with COVID. I know it's not easy, and trust me, everything you guys are doing as athletic directors and coaches is very much appreciated from me. So thank you.
All right. Well, thanks all. It's been great to get to see everybody again and catch up. So let's have a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Tom, second. We're officially adjourning the boys lacrosse committee, and really appreciate you guys being here today, and good luck with season B and moving forward with the rest of the spring.
Thanks all.
Thanks, guys.